Cool. So, hi everybody. My name is Jason Lopes. I'm the Director of Additive Manufacturing at Gentle Giant. I have about 20 years of additive manufacturing experience, all 3D printing, you name it. What we thought we would do for today's panel is actually take Ian, our host, and walk him through our studio, what we call follow the process. And we're going to take Ian and scan him and then turn him into a physical avatar, which we have up here that we can pass around and show everyone. So we'll have numerous clips. We'll start off with our demo reel, and then it's designed to, after each clip, we can engage with some Q&A. If the Q&A starts preventing the next clip, Ian will get us moving, and we'll do a full Q&A at the end as well. But we wanted it to be interactive. So without further ado, we'll start with our demo reel.
And I will pass this avatar around.
Yes.
Let's do it. Let's start over.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Ian Robinson, and I am here at Gentle Giant Studios. I'm sitting with Carl and Jason, and we're here to showcase what goes on behind closed doors, as much as you guys want to divulge, of course, and how collectibles, toys, and that process actually works. So if we can go through and first introduce ourselves, let's start with Carl.
I'm Carl Meyer. I'm founder and CEO of Gentle Giant Studios. And yeah, been in business for the better part of 30 years or something like that. So it's been a while. A lot of changes and growth. So
that's fantastic. Yeah. And you are?
My name is Jason Lopes. I'm the Director of Additive Manufacturing here at Gentle Giant Studios. I've been 3D printing close to 20 years. I started in special effects with 3D printing, and then I actually left for an OEM to learn more about materials, etc., to come back here to Gentle Giant Studios.
That's fantastic. And of course, you know, if you guys are here at the summit and you're watching this, I mean, we're going to be going through a whole process as I understand it. It was gracious enough to have you guys call me in and you guys did a scan. So we're going to talk more about that. But can we just go over the general process and maybe even some of the history of what Gentle Giant Studios is and, you know, why you guys make a difference every single day?
Well, let's see. Going back to the very beginning for me, as a musician trying to make it in a rock and roll band and just hitting a point where I went, I'm not going to make it. Yeah. And I stumbled into the toy industry, really. I started going to the toy stores or any kind of consumer product store, and you can look at anything on the shelf or anything that exists and basically reverse engineer it in your head by feeling the tolerances and looking at the parting lines and kind of having a basic understanding. And then, of course, you learn a lot more as time goes on. But that got me my foot in the door. I remember the first test sculpture I did was a Donald Duck. And I still have a piece of it. It's not good.
You got to start somewhere.
It's not good, but it got me in the door. And you learn so much from all these other talented people. And I ended up moving out of that studio and starting my own studio because I was driving down to Hermosa Beach from Valley Village, Studio City area, realizing that all the licensors, all the studios, or most of them, were up here in Burbank. Disney, Warner Brothers, DreamWorks, Universal, Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, on and on. There's lots up here, and on the other side of the hill, too. And I just realized this is where I got to be. Hanna-Barbera was around, so they were one of my first big clients of getting work, and I just basically walked in the door and started, selling myself and doing the work and delivering it before the deadline at that time was unheard of, and I was just that eager, and that was kind of how I started. Yeah,
I think the other thing too, like asking like how it was adopted here, I think one thing that ZBrush doesn't get enough credit for is, I feel in my experience that our industry, entertainment industry, has the most traditionalists that have transitioned over with their craftsmanship into a digital playground. You have a lot of software out there, right? Like look at architecture and things like that. AutoCAD came out. However, there's such a steep learning curve into jumping from drafting table into that. It's a little overwhelming. When you look at the transition of Carl's studio going from traditional clay making and sculpting into digital, ZBrush as a tool is a true artist tool. And I've always thought this, and I don't think they don't get enough credit for this, meaning like I can take a traditional, someone's been sculpting for 20, 30 years, and probably within 4 to 6 hours have that person off on their own sculpting. Because outside of just some of the things that we need to go over, pretty much it's like a one-to-one transition into this universe where it's the same tool sets that they have, it's the same techniques, things like that. Mesh manipulation. I mean, it's amazing what it now opens up as a traditionalist and in this digital workflow. And you look at other industries that are doing a lot of CAD and geometry creation. It's all based off of a drawing, etc. Whereas ZBrush, how we can now go in with our craft and just manipulate that data, that mesh like nothing else, is truly something to say for itself. So I think having a visionary bring it in is a huge part of it. Yeah. And then all the other ingredients in that stew are, like ZBrush, like really making a true artist tool. Like you don't see that a lot. I've tried to use
the artists themselves.
Exactly.
The creative, collective, collaborative, working together, taking things from the physical world and making it digital, or something from the digital world and making it physical at whatever size, scale, or whatever deliverable.
Oh, that's awesome. And I couldn't have said it better myself. So thank you guys for sitting with me. We're now going to go ahead and we're going to start going through the shop. You guys are going to give us a tour so the audience can see what you guys do, and we're really excited. So
it'd be nice to follow the process of bringing you into a product.
Yeah,
of some sort.
I'm super excited, so I can't wait to see it.
So that opening up of the history and what we're all about, Carl's vision of this, a lot of people don't realize Carl pieced together technology at a time when no one knew anything about scanners, no one knew anything about 3D printing, but he was able to see that's where his company needed to go to keep up, to get iterations out quicker, to deal with changes, deal with scale changes, shrink rates going into manufacturing. It's a pretty special place. So we're going to officially start into the follow the process of this project of that of the avatar that's going around of Ian. Does anyone have any questions on the history? Because we can take a couple questions in between each segment.
Any questions? Or are you guys excited?
Okay.
All right. Yeah. All right, take it away. What's going on? So as you know, right now we've been at Gentle Giants and they've been walking us through this whole shop, and we are actually in a trailer, and I am greeted by an expert in this field. Can you explain who you are and what you do and why we're in this amazing trailer?
So my name is Alec Talian. I'm the lead scan technician and 3D artist here at Gentle Giant Studios. So we're in our 24-ton trailer that we call the Juggernaut. It has 109 5DSs and one 750D. It's one of our most powerful arrays that we have at the studio. We scanned a multitude of actors in here, from Brad Pitt, George Clooney, Henry Cavill, Gal Gadot. So, and we've actually done a cougar and the cougar's cub in here at one point, and then we've done all the Star Wars shows from Book of Boba Fett to Ahsoka, and then some other Star Wars shows are coming up in the future, and now
you're going to scan me. If anybody's wondering why I'm in this outfit right now, it's because you're going to scan me next, because there's a fun process or a project we've actually been going through the process of, which has been amazing so far to see it. But I mean, it's, besides the name drops, I mean, it's just awesome. You get to work with this, you get to do scan data. Is there anything about the process that you would say is unique for beginners to know and understand? Because as you know, as technology keeps increasing, 3D scanning and 3D printing, that's becoming more aware. So in something like this, what would be a great way to showcase like how somebody can get into this?
So I would say the first thing is start looking at how to scan, because this is kind of photography on steroids. I mean, not kind of, it actually is. I would say start just looking into scanning and then kind of learning the principles of how this stuff runs.
Yeah.
I mean, essentially, our triggering system is essentially the shutter remote for the entire array. We have the ability of controlling every single camera in here individually.
That's so
and if we
cool.
wanted to do some bullet time scanning, we can actually definitely do that. We have full control of these cameras. So
Really?
I would say just start looking into scanning, start researching it, start doing some scans. I mean, the place I started was actually scanning rocks, but I didn't want to just scan any kind of rock. I wanted to scan rocks that were alive. So I started scanning fossils, and that's how I started out. And so I would say that for students, maybe start scanning fossils instead of just like a generic rock, and then go from there and start scanning a car, maybe scan a couch. If you have access to your own personal drone, scan your own house. And
so scan anything.
Scan
That's just really
anything. So that's what I would say.
Okay, perfect. Awesome.
Yeah.
So that's Alec sitting up here, obviously, and if there's any questions for Alec, please ask. Otherwise, we will go, once that data gets ingested, then we have Edgar sitting next to me, who's our rock star in the digital team as well, that will take that scan data and get it ready for its next downstream process.
Scott.
I got a question. You guys were previously using cyberware laser scanners, and have you gone to photogrammetry?
Yeah, we're currently, what you saw in the video is one of our photogrammetry arrays. It's one of the two that we have at the studio. So that one's our 5DS array. We have another one that's a mixture of other Canon cameras, so 50Ds. This is no laser scanning. This is purely photos. We're taking 100 photos in a quarter of a second, and then from there, we're able to process all the photos to get a 3D model, which is generally handed off to Edgar and several of the other artists at the studio. But we purely do photogrammetry as our main focal point, but we also do LiDAR scanning, so light detection and range. We have those scanners to scan sets and whatnot. We also have arm scanners to scan little props if need be. So like on Kenobi, we did a lot of the lightsabers, the original lightsabers from the original films. We essentially scan them so that way the prop house can essentially remake them. They can make the non-hero versions of those props. So we do still do laser scanning, just not cyberware scanning specifically. So
I would add the advantage to doing the photogrammetry is you're capturing geometry and texture simultaneously with optimal application ability. So that data can be used for anything that's digital to be animated or 3D printed into a color part. So those are the advantages.
Awesome. Great question. Do we have any other questions? I was checking online. You actually kind of answered the other question they had with as well. They had photogrammetry or photometric. If you do, which one you do?
So photogrammetry is the primary one. We don't do photometric scanning at the studio currently, but we are in the talks of potentially moving forward to doing that.
Nice. Any questions in here before we move forward? Cool. Do you want the mic? Here, okay.
Hey guys, love your stuff. Absolutely love it. So I heard that you have mobile scanning too. Do you take it on set, or what stays at the studio and what's mobile?
So Of our 5 arrays, every single one is mobile. So we have 4 body arrays and then 1 head array. Arguably, our head array could also be a body array because we also scanned monkeys in there at one point. We even scanned a 5-inch gecko in there, and we were able to get all the scales in view and even all the little details on it. So, but all 5 of our arrays are completely mobile. Our true mobile arrays is our two in our trailers. So we have 2 trailers. One's our 24-ton trailer that you saw right now in the video. We call it the Juggernaut. Our other one's a 12-ton. That's our Argonaut. Those are our Canon dedicated arrays. So those we go to set primarily in very special cases. If we're going to be on the location long-term, and long-term being like over a year, we will assemble some of our arrays on a stage at a location. But all of our trailers have pretty much been on all the recent Star Wars shows and everything. Well, wherever they're filming, we just move the trailer there and we set it up. So.
Ideally, in the very beginning, you weren't supposed to move this equipment anywhere, but we would drag it and put it on set, and every time we did, it was like a lunar landing, so no one had done it before, and things would break, and there's some challenging times there. The very first mobile scan we ever did was a cyberware head scanner out of the back of a truck, and we dropped it on the set of Fight Club. It's like 1999. So Ed Norton would have been the first person that I know of that was scanned live on set for visual effects.
Awesome. Any other questions? I have one for you. What's the largest thing you've ever scanned?
That's a
Probably would
lighter question.
say a C-130,
Oh yeah, that too.
like a full-on
Queen
C-1,
Mary.
like a
Yeah.
actual.
Yeah.
So this was actually for, I believe, The Gray Man. I could be wrong. For the film The Gray Man.
Yeah.
We were actually out on Long Beach and went to the old Boeing hangar, and they had a C-130 parked there. So that was the actually, no, I shouldn't say the largest. We did the Queen Mary.
Yeah, the
Actually,
entire-
well, I shouldn't say it.
yeah.
So C-130 would be second, but the Queen Mary would be the actual largest
So scan anything.
scanning. Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
And that guy right there, Jake, he was.
Jake
part of that
Martinez and
scan
Steve
right
Krause
there.
are the 2 that scanned the entire Queen Mary painstakingly for over a week.
In a day.
Oh, it was in a day?
He went in the smokestacks too and got the inside. It's pretty cool.
Oh, shoot.
Okay, I'll answer this.
Barbie doll, the original Barbie doll
No,
for the Barbie
this is a
movie?
fine. You guys don't know it was a fine art project, and it was scanning a nail for a fine artist named Urs Fischer, who had to have every little scratch on that nail in the enlargement that went on display. I don't know how accurate it was because it was pretty small, but that was, I don't remember the scanner we used on it, but that's the smallest that I recall.
Cool.
That's something. Cool. Any other questions? Okay, we got one more over here. Let's do it.
So you mentioned about drones. What kind of drone do you use to scan data, like outside, and also the software you use? Do you have a preference, like a Metashape or Capture Reality?
So we're currently using a Mavic 4 to do our drone scanning. As in software, we'll interchangeably go back to Metashape and Reality Capture. I won't go into the specifics which program we use so much for. I think Reality Capture we use mostly for all our character stuff. But we'll switch between both programs depending on the situation. So.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're going to move forward. So if you are thinking of questions, lock them in. All right, so I just got scanned. I'm now dressed in normal attire for everyone's safety and eyes and such like that. But I am here in the digital room, and we're going to be talking about the process. And I would love for you to introduce yourself, who you are, and what you do, and just tell the people what's happening.
Yep. My name is Edgar Karapetian, and I'm the lead 3D artist in the digital department. I'm the one that takes care of the data that's pushed out of the cameras, and then we run it through RC, and all the cleanup work gets done by me. So we do stuff for printing or for visual effects, for digital doubles, that sort of thing.
So this basically, like, they just took 1,000 photos of me, and now you're the guy that comes in and cleans it all up.
Pretty much,
And it's looking pretty good and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I'm impressed. I mean, it's just my likeness.
Yeah, no, it's incredible, like the amount of detail that it gets out of those cameras.
So what's a typical process for you? You take the files, and then what happens? How do we get them into ZBrush?
Yeah, so the photos will get ran through RC, which will be done by one of our other team members usually, or whoever is handling that one. And then once that 3D file is sent to me, I take it into ZBrush. We scale it depending on what our clients want, and then we just begin the cleanup process. So that could be like little flyaways, or like filling in little pieces, or merged finger bits, stuff like that.
Yeah. And when we did the official scan, but usually there's like a hair cap and so forth. So in that process in here, we actually did a scan that was a nice clean scan that wasn't filmed, that actually has the hair cap and stuff like that.
Yes.
So what's the plan now? You scanned me. Where are we going next?
So now we clean it all up, make sure it looks good as like just a standard scan of you. There's nothing weird about it, and then it's gonna get sent over to one of our other artists that are gonna turn it into something else.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, so in ZBrush, are there certain features you like to lean on a little bit that actually help you do your job quicker? I'm a Dynamesh fan, just gonna throw that out there.
Oh yeah. Dynamesh, we definitely use Dynamesh. It's pretty much like all the like from Dynamesh, ZBrush, projecting, all that sort of stuff.
Nice.
Going in and using like a few brushes here and there doesn't, like, it's not anything crazy. Your clay buildup, standard stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for showing this process and talking about it a little bit. And I think we're on to the next step. So, great stuff. All right, so you guys saw a lot of me. I'm so sorry. But it was important for the scan process. Could you talk a little bit more, like what would be the difference between why my shirt was off in the actual scan and why I had my shirt on during the test shots?
It's better just to have like a nude as it can be scanned to transfer it onto like the avatar thing that we were doing of you, and especially for costuming. So like any sort of film that needs a character that's going to be in a superhero suit, they need to have them be just wearing their underwear so they can build it exactly to their form. So that's why we would do just like bald cap, underwear. That's pretty much it for those types of scans.
Yeah, and you guys made me feel extremely comfortable, by the way. It's really awesome. The team is impressive. Do you have a question? Here,
Wax sculpting?
Carl, question.
Yeah.
That's, well, I'm sure there's people working in wax. There's people working in every way, but more productive for what we do. 3D printing straight to a final, the resolution has gotten to that point where we go straight to final if it's going to be some kind of tooling master. There are many machines that print in wax, but it's really a lost wax used to burn out into metals. Used for jewelry quite a bit and some types of sculptures. But our process at Gentle Giant went completely into ZBrush probably 15, 16 years ago, 100%. And that's because it allows any artist that can work with that tool to be able to work on just about any type of deliverable that we have. And when you have a company and you rely on one avenue or diversity, if you hit a strike, for scanning, we hit a wall. I mean, a COVID, that did a lot to knock a lot of companies out of business. If it wasn't for our diversification and working with all kinds of different deliverables, we wouldn't have survived. So that's just trying to have a wide footprint in the snow so you don't sink.
Yeah, awesome. We have a question coming on from online. If somebody wanted to try to start scanning from home today, and they obviously cannot afford 50 or 100 impressive cameras, what would you suggest they start with to start scanning today?
I would say just use your phone.
Yeah.
Start using your phone. So take your friend, have them lay on a wall, just take a bunch of photographs of them all the way around. Because really what we're doing is, if you take one photo, that's not going to be enough for the computer to understand what it's seeing. If you take enough photos around someone's face, it's going to be understand like, oh, the shape is shaped like this, the lips are shaped like that. Just go around that, and when you shoot the photographs, you should shoot them so that way when you flip through all the photographs, it looks like an animation. If you do that, it's pretty much guaranteed that the computer will be able to read the photographs and create a model from that. If you want to go the extra step, put a ruler on top of their head so that way you can scale it after fact. So if you want to 3D print your friend's head,
Exactly.
That's a good tip.
I can't stress that enough, what Alex saying. During the pandemic, actually, before I joined Gentle Giant, I was working for a company called Carbon to learn more about materials. But I was actually utilizing iPhone 14, doing custom CPAPs for infants at Stanford Research, where we would take at least 40-something images of patient, and we actually used a Coke can for scale reference inside. And then there's a program out there called Meshroom. And you can bring all of those images into Meshroom and see it solve right in front of you as a preview. You can ditch photos that didn't come out good, and then you can get your 3D print, your 3D output from there. It's actually really powerful and easy.
Awesome. Do we have any other questions here before we move forward? Yes. Would you like the mic?
So my question is in ZBrush. A lot of the time when I work on scans, I would use mask by intensity. Is that a tool that you guys use often, or do you have any other tools to bring back from like the color map that you'd recommend?
Mask by intensity, I personally never use it. The way I go about it, I'll isolate a section and tackle it piece by piece as I'm going up the model, just for efficiency's sake, because some of those scans are like 40 million poly, 50 million poly. It's super big. So,
if you haven't used it, if you put your color map on, turn to a poly map basically over the model, it'll give you the height data basically from the texture. It's a pretty nifty tool in the rush.
Cool.
I've used it on TV shows.
Nice.
Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Actually, Paul just showed you all something. What was this? All right, one more time. Come on.
Awesome.
All right, cool. You guys are doing fantastic. Any other questions? Yes, I'm coming to you.
Hey, thank you. What's your sort of rough turnaround time from scanning to a finished 3D file?
So
pretty much less than a day.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
And it always depends on the subject matter. So if it's like a Star Wars character with like a million pieces of armor, clothing, all that, especially if it's anything that's like completely black or glossy, that requires a rebuild. Some of those, they won't come out in the scan. So we'll have to sit there and remodel out the armor based off all the scans, all the reference that we have. But regularly, yeah, a day, I'd say. Yeah.
Any others? No. Okay, cool. I'm glad my face made you laugh. That's awesome. All right, let's continue forward.
So before we get into the next part, we're going to go into our program manager that oversaw the creative sculpting of Ian's avatar. We have a crew right now actually on the East Coast that are representing us at Toy Fair. So you'll see Adam on the screen, but he is not here, obviously. But just wanted to put that out there, and we'll answer as much as we can.
All right, so as you can see so far, we've already gone through an incredible process of going and getting scanned and then going to the cleanup process. But of course, there's always somebody who has to art direct or oversee that process. So I'm going to go ahead and let you please introduce yourself. What do you do and how do you do it?
I am Adam Van Wickler. I am Director of Creative Services here at Gentle Giant Studios. I've been here for 17 years now.
Awesome.
So I'm part of the external prototyping department. So we're basically work for hire. So Hasbro, Mattel, Diamond, Dark Horse, Funko, you name it, they come to us and they hire us to create prototypes. Mostly toys, collectibles, statues, mini busts, action figures, lots and lots of action figures. So I am the guy who is art directing everyone here in the studio, and I'm the go-between with all of our clients. So basically, Jason and Carl came to me and were like, hey, we scanned Ian,
Yep.
and we want to make him into a statue. So I got your scan data. I went to one of our digital sculptors, one of our best digital sculptors, Rene Aldrete, and had him open up a previous Avatar Na'vi statue that we made. He made some modifications to that model and also put your face on it.
Wow.
So I've got it right here if you want to take a look.
Awesome. Yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at this. Wow. And so the process of this, like, it's not as simple, I'm assuming, as taking my face, slapping it on, and saying, there it is, right? There's some blending, some smoothing that's going to happen in that process, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. And we started applying it to the model. We did have to do some pushing and pulling to make it match proportion-wise. And obviously, we were just trying to get it to look good on the Na'vi body. But luckily, you have the same kind of tall, skinny guy, so it worked out very well.
Awesome. No, and it came out super cool. And what we're looking at right now is, of course, the grayscale version of this. And it's just so neat to see how that process is coming together. So as you're art directing, what are some key elements that you look for that call out to you that says this is not good versus this is good?
Well, we tweaked the pose a little bit, and we also made it work so this could all be produced in one solid piece, so that way you're going to go see it printed.
Oh, yeah, I'm so excited.
To go see that. But we did it typically for something that we're mass producing. We'll cut and key elements for mass production.
Okay.
But because this is more of a one-off for just you and your family to enjoy, we kept it all as one piece. So we wanted to make sure that certain items weren't going to break and were backfilled. The tail has multiple points of connection along the body. Same thing with the braid, your Na'vi braid, so you can plug into a banshee. And then, we tweaked the pose a little bit, so it is going to be a unique one-off piece besides adding your head into the mix. So once we got the head scan, it was mostly about blending it into the whole Na'vi head shape.
That's so awesome.
That was the main point of action there.
Yeah. Now, how long does a process like this take? Because from the scan side, they were like, okay, it could take 2 to 4 hours.
Right.
I wasn't super complex, and luckily I did a few things that was nice, like keep my fingers apart. So here, how long does this process take from getting it slapped together and getting this concept together to getting it approved?
That's an awesome question with like a variety of answers. So basically, when someone comes to us with a new project, we generally, like whether it's an action figure, statue, or mini bust, we generally ask for about approximately 4 weeks to first look.
Okay.
Now, with that said, we've done things overnight before.
Okay.
You know, so it's like, you know, clients have come to us and they're like, we need something
right
tomorrow.
Now.
And, you know, we do a lot of projects for big shows like San Diego Comic-Con. We did the Super 7 Thundercats Lair for them.
Wow.
So this big, giant piece. And that 4 weeks, I think, start to finish, from printing out to painting. So we can do things a lot quicker. Yours was a pre-existing statue that we were modifying and then adding the head to. So this only took us a few days.
Nice.
It was generally pretty fast. So
wow.
Yeah.
Well, it looks amazing. I'm blown away that now I'm part of this world in some way, shape, or form. So it's really, really cool. Any last, like, right now, obviously, we're at the summit and we're having a lot of people ask about, like, how do I get into this? What is there something I do? These are very common questions artists in their early careers ask. Is there any advice you have to a younger artist who's watching this now and saying, I want to get into collectibles, I want to get into toys, what should I do? What's the process?
I mean, I mentioned it to you before. We are like 99.9% ZBrush here in the studio.
Yeah.
We're using it to do all of our prototyping work for action figures, statues, mini busts. I think, obviously, anatomy, always going to be important. Everyone loves sculpting monsters and putting monsters into their portfolio, which is great. I love looking at monsters. I love buying monster toys.
Yeah.
But anatomy is key. And also, delving more into the 3D printing world, making watertight models that actually are printable. So that's a very important part if you want to get into product development. So
100%,
doing that for sure.
Awesome. And I can see here real quick, I just want to call out the fun that is happening on your desk.
Yeah.
Can you just tell us a little backstory on this before I let you go back to work?
A lot of the stuff that I have going on in here is stuff that we've worked on and stuff that I'm also a fan of. I'm a giant toy nerd. I never grew out of it. So toys, comic books, everything to me.
So cool.
Very big action figure fan. And a good chunk of it is stuff we worked on that I've bought. My collection at home is even crazier.
Nice.
Everyone always asks how I can work at this desk, but I manage. And it is a stand-up desk, but good luck trying to put it down.
Yeah, I was going to say, you got enough
falling
underneath.
Yeah,
Very
exactly.
cool. Well, thank you for showing the process and going through like this step of the stage, because right now, as you can see here, as we're going through this whole section with Gentle Giants, is that we're able to just showcase this whole process and really get to that. And it's neat that we can come in and talk to you. So thank you so much.
Pleasure.
It's been a pleasure.
Welcome
and I'll let
to
you
Pandora.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
All right. I have a pop question for everyone here. How many toys do you think he had on his desk? I have no idea. That's the answer. It was a lot. Do we have any questions? Yes.
This is probably really stupid. Did he have a 3D model in Photoshop, one layer? Was he rotating in Photoshop?
Yeah.
I
do
believe
that?
so. There's an extension, right, with Photoshop and ZBrush that works like that, kind of, I think. For
Kind
like
of, sort of,
painting,
just a
I've
little
messed
bit.
with the one that
Not the-
for like textures. I've messed with that one where it throws it into Photoshop.
We have the Z plugin for Photoshop. You can
Yeah.
send that straight in, but not the 3D model. But you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
throw in renders.
Yeah.
So Adam's very innovative because he constantly, with all, like how he was focusing on anatomy, so with all the action figure work, think of the wrestling figures, things like that, it's a constant back and forth getting approvals. And Adam's developed a way to very rapidly take in-progress 3D data out of ZBrush and get it for review. He'll probably have 2 to 3 conference calls a day on certain figures that are going on, certain franchises that we're in the middle of right now. So it's really amazing. Secondly, what you don't see there, everything on his desk, one of the reasons why I always wanted to join Gentle Giant is I've been printing for a long time. And normally, you know, we print industrial, so we're printing very large things, cutting things up and putting them together. He's developed the way of keying for us. That's unreal. I've been following for about almost 15 years myself, wondering how he's doing this. Secondly, articulation. The articulation that comes out of our studio, I'm blown away every day. And when we're sending a character, let's say an action figure, to one of the printers, you're talking upwards from anywhere from 30-something parts to 64 parts with joints, pins, all of that. I do not do any reprints. We got it down pat, where within an overnight, we're into cleanup and assembly the next day. Our tolerances are just smack dab. Our artists know the ratios of exporting, what we need for clearance, glue gaps, things like that. It's pretty impressive what that man has. I really encourage you to look him up on Instagram and follow him. He likes to show and talk about a lot of the things he's doing.
Awesome. What else do we? Yes, you.
I'm wondering if the one model you passed around, is that made of a head scan, a tighter rig, or from the body scan?
From the body scan. Yeah, it's the head. No, we just did the full body and they extracted just the head. Yeah.
That means they have the rest of me to do with whatever they want.
Exactly. Yeah.
We've already been doing it.
I did consent. Do we have any other questions? You guys are so chirpy. I love it. Awesome.
So as we go into the next session, this is where we start getting into printing. And I think it's really important to know that the way that our printing department is working with our digital department, we're really doing some amazing things. Once the video is done, I'll pass around one of our more recent R&D projects that we've been involved in. But the world's the oyster when it comes to fusing these two groups together. It's absolutely amazing.
Just for some clarity, we call the digital department basically the film services data acquisition team. We're pretty much all digital, but we call them the digital department because we always have, because we used to sculpt primarily traditionally, and if we wanted to go digital, we would 3D scan a maquette, which is still a way to get into 3D, and it's also a great way to get into making figures and stuff at an instant way without getting digital, and then moving on into a digital application.
Do you actually, based on that question, do you actually take people's works who are still doing traditional sculpture and then go in and scan for them? Is that something you still do?
We don't do it, I guess, commercially for products, for consumer products and toys and more entertainment-based stuff, but we do a lot of that for fine art. So that is one of our facets, is working with fine artists and doing enlargements or translating things that they've started into full 3D.
That's also that's also happened with some maquettes in the past with film as well. So like if they have a creature maquette, they'll send it over, we'll scan it, we'll send it back to them. Yeah.
That's awesome, because I just picked up traditional clay.
Yeah.
So I may bug you.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Do we have any other questions, especially in the back? Don't be shy. We still have time, so there are questions about the process. They're here, so you can definitely hit them up. Going once, going twice. All right, cool. Moving forward.
This one, right?
All right, so we're in the next stage. We're in the lab, as I know it right now.
Welcome.
Hey, thank you. This is super amazing. So we've gone through so much already. Again, from 3D scanning me to then going through art directing, and now we're in the lab where 3D printers exist and magic comes to life from that digital to physical. Can you introduce yourself? Who are you, and what is going on in this room that's so majestic?
Absolutely. My name is Jason Lopes. I'm the Director of Additive Manufacturing here at Gentle Giant Studios. And I've been printing close to 20 years, 3D printing for almost 20 years.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
man.
it's pretty wild.
That is wild.
Pretty wild. So you're in a very special place here because there's a lot of the origin technology, like I like to refer to it as, and you're standing right in front of it. It's right behind you. This is the original 3D printing invention, stereolithography, SLA.
Yes.
This was invented up in Valencia, California, about 20 minutes north of here, by a man named Chuck Hull, who's still active in the company today at 3D Systems. And as you see, we have a bust here of him and dedication to him. But this flavor of 3D printing was invented in about 1989.
Yeah, see, that's the funny part. I've been 3D printing now for like 15 years, and I'm still learning that it's that old. And
it's wild.
It's changing every single day.
It's changing every single day, and if you're part of my daily conversations and meetings, and you heard me just say the word flavor, because 3D printing is not just 3D printing. There's many flavors inside of it. I kind of refer to it as Baskin Robbins. You have 31 different flavors. You can choose what works best for your palate that day.
Nice.
And that's what it is for us. We have big industrial machines, we have prosumer machines, we even use consumer machines. But it really comes down to what do we need out of the print. A lot of people will think that, they just send their data that we saw earlier in the video to a printer and call it a day, and that's how we do it. But no, here at Gentle Giant, it's pretty special because not only do we make one-offs, but we also work in manufacturing. And what that means is, it's very easy. It's easier to make a single unit.
Yeah.
But some of the things that you see around here, we do in the volumes of 100,000. Even if it's in a volume of 1,000, that's so much more challenging just a single print. So a lot of times we have to look at where's it going after here, what materials can I make this out of that are different than just a prototyping material, and how can we basically make our downstream workflow more efficient for the overall project.
Right.
And that's where I come in. So I really look and try to bring new materials, new technologies to what we can offer here.
No, and that's super awesome because, again, you just mentioned the fact that you do massive quantities, but you also do one-off.
Correct.
And those one-offs are challenging. And so far, you guys have been taking me through this really special process of one-offing me as a character,
Absolutely.
as a Navi. And so, can we speak more on that process? So in this room, how does that work?
So in this room, as you saw, you were scanned earlier.
Yep.
So it's either coming from that scan or coming from geometry that was created outside of here. At some point, it's got to come through my department to get turned from digital into the physical world. And that's what's really awesome about it. When you take, ones and zeros and turn them physical, turn them tangible, it just opens up the world. So behind you, we have two of the machines that aid a lot in that, and this is industrial SLA. We have a Pro X950 and an iPro 8000. So, and then on the left-hand side is what I call Prosumer Alley. These are all available to anyone to purchase, right? We have Formlabs machines, we have a Nexa machine, but this was my idea to bring more 3D printing to the employees at Gentle Giant for them to be able to learn more rather than learning on an industrial machine, how it can benefit and how we could utilize it in the workflow. So on a machine like this, we're R&Ding like a 40% castable wax in case we want to get into jewelry design through ZBrush and then output and do sand casting and do some metal pours on it.
We have this here for just, this is a hot rodded, basically MakerBot, but nothing about it is default. We use this for larger scale form, and believe it or not, we utilize this on a lot of complex painting projects to actually create paint masking applications that will output here in low quality, super cheap, and then hand them off to the painters to put on some complex geometry to mask so they can paint a lot easier. And they'll use that in unison with like silly putty and things like that. Then you saw Adam, and Adam and his team really took your scan into now that maquette avatar world that we were talking about. And what we have here is the grand opening of
Wow, let's get a close-up on that.
your
That looks
figure done in 2 different scales.
Now, 2 different scales, what's the purpose for that?
So I did a 10-inch and an 8-inch scale. As we were preparing your actual character and sculpting, we work on numerous other projects, and just to make sure that the scale output of what the artist was doing off-site in ZBrush was either 10 inches or 8 inches, I just made sure we were covered for that output. So you saw in Edgar's desk, you had a 10 and an 8. Here we have a 10 and an 8. And there's no reason for why we did both other than so I can have 2 versions of you with slightly different scale.
All right. So now what do we have here? I mean, I recognize it as Kid Cudi because I'm a huge fan, but okay, what do we have?
So this was really cool, and you saw the data back there.
Yeah.
So he came in that array that you were in, same array, and we did full color scan of him.
Yeah.
And then we wanted to give him a present on his way out a few weeks later because he was doing so much scanning with us, a lot for his clothing line, for his retail stores overseas. So we decided to make 2 prints of him. And this has not been touched up by hand. So this is right off of a J850. This is actually Stratasys technology. And you can see every detail is caught, just like you saw in that monitor. You could actually see all the tattoos.
Look at that. The wrinkles are everything about this is lifelike.
It's amazing. So this was done in ZBrush. This was modeled and then done in ZBrush. And what this is basically, this is all one print.
Okay, that's the part that is tripping me out. It's one print.
One single print.
Wow.
So basically we have a skull with a flower crown around. And then embedded in a sphere. The sphere sits at 6.5 inches diameter.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for showing us this room. It's so fantastic. We're going to move on to the next step because we have painting and some other elements to showcase.
We have painting and model shop. So I just want to say that Kid Cudi project was my first R&D with the team at Gentle Giant, and Kim Lavery's in the front row. She heads up the scanning division, and she enabled us to really work together and understand color like no one else has done color before. You're seeing color prints outside, and we work with Mimaki, we work with Stratasys. It's an amazing technology. But when you're working with true flesh tone, different ethnicities, things like that, you'll see where those technologies fall short, at least in our standards of what needs to be done with a painter. So we don't bring in a technology like this to replace it. We'll bring in a color technology and actually have head of our paint shop, Scott, who you'll meet in a video coming up, come in and help us drive. How do we do perfect color theory? How do we proof before we get to the physical output? How can we really push the limits of the color like not even the OEMs are able to achieve? It's one thing to, paint up something red and try to output it red, but when you're taking true flesh tones and making sure that they fall within a color-corrected scale, it's not easy work, and we've somehow figured out within a week or so of working together how to do this and take it to the next level. The only thing that was done on that print is, as all 3D prints have, if you look close, they have, layer lines, peaks and valleys. We've developed a urethane type of spray that takes about 7 seconds to spray it. It actually fills in the peaks and valleys, and that's the only physical thing we've done to that print that's walking around or being passed around.
That's amazing. Let's give a round of applause for that process.
Yeah.
It's quite amazing. The bowling ball, the skull. Okay, first off,
I have this here. I mean, we're happy to pass it around. It's super, super heavy.
Yeah, it's really heavy. So what I suggest is maybe afterwards, if you want to come take a peek before you vacate, we still have some time. We have at least 35 minutes still left. We have time. But It's super impressive. I know those online. Trust me, it's amazing to see it in person. It doesn't do it justice on screen, but it's still amazing on screen to see it. It's quite beautiful.
Seeing all those tattoos, I mean, all that was done was processing and exporting. There wasn't any going in and adding this and that. It's amazing. And then what you see here is, this is just a great example how you can use 3D printing, additive manufacturing to get a job. We were asked at the last minute to provide something for scroll masks for Invasion, a Disney Plus show for Comic-Con, and immediately, everyone first thought, there's no way that we can do this in time. It's a rubber mask. Well, all the background that I have in material science, understanding these technologies, we actually printed it in rubber in less than 10 hours, airbrushed it, painted it, and showed our proof of concept, and immediately got the green light to make 150 of them. So it's really a developing process of how to use these things outside of a prototype. So if you have any questions, please ask.
I'll just say that when Jason came on board with his experience with different materials, particularly pliable materials and clear materials, it opened up a lot of doors for us. And many years ago, we went on a soundstage with Aerosmith rehearsing, and we molded Tom Hamilton's, the bass player's, hand because guitar players throw picks out in the shows, right? Well, he plays with his fingers, so he wanted to throw his finger out. So we molded his finger with a ring on it that says Aerosmith and Tom Hamilton. And Tom Hamilton, yeah, you guys can all come up and touch this too. Tom Hamilton gave me the finger. And so we did it in latex, and they actually are selling on eBay for like $400 from over a decade ago. But latex is, if you're familiar with it, it peels and just gets really nasty. And this is right off of the machine. We're going to pigment the finger, and we're doing this as a separate part. But we'll be able to produce all of these in-house for much less than the cost to do the latex, and this will stand the test of time. So I shouldn't put the finger out there, everybody.
Do we have any questions so far? What's going on? The process has been super amazing. Being a part of this too, by the way, I just want to say thank you to the entire Gentle Giant team for allowing me to come in and actually just plaster my body everywhere. But it's been such a process. I'm curious too, because, I feel like a lot of people who are trying to get into the industry, or just anyone who's trying to just learn for the first time, there's various opportunities in multiple industries. And we touched briefly on how you got started. What was like the thing that put Gentle Giant on the map?
I would say what the turning point was integrating technologies, bridging mainly data acquisition, 3D scanning, 3D modeling to fix up whatever you're scanned, and then printing it out in a physical form that was true, with a real geometry. Because I started out doing toys and consumer product-based stuff, and my eureka moment was really a Minnie Mouse bubble bath bottle that we were doing for Johnson & Johnson. It was going to be made out of rotocast vinyl, and it had to be a certain size. And if anybody's done any professional approval-based work for Disney before, we know that they have teams of character artists and people that are there to tell you, no, it's not right, no. And the minute they tell you yes, well, maybe they don't have a job, but this is a big, speed bump in the process of getting it done. On the flip side of that, you also have the tolerances of shrink for the manufacturer. So when they tell you, hey, that's the wrong size, to a traditional sculptor, model maker, it's like, you got to make it from scratch. So, and this all was at timing when computer-generated graphics were landing themselves in feature films for special effects and action sequences, and animation went almost 100% CG. And in that case, the geometry was done. It was perfect. You couldn't argue it. And so that just changed the approval process, and that was a huge turning point for putting real geometry and authenticity and the integrity of the real geometry into the product.
That's amazing. Very cool. Any other we had a question. I'm coming to you.
Hi. How do you approach when you have to do like a big project, a statue? What's your technology for printing do you use?
Yep. So what we'll do is we'll basically cut it up. Main body. It all comes down to what type of a look the sculptor is going to have. It's going to be dressed with clothes, or is it going to be what I call like the Happy Meal style of dressing clothes. We'll take the lower resolution parts of the body, cut them up, and put them on our Pro X, because that prints parts at about 5.5 feet long by 29 inches deep by 22 inches tall. And it's an ABS-like material. And then we'll take hands, head, things like that, and cut it up in a way so we can run hands and feet in high detailed parts, if you will, on our MJP technology. That's multi-jet printing. It's just like your 2D printers at home, except they're modified with vacuum and voltage to run a photopolymeric resin through them, and it UV cures on the side, slice by slice. So I can print in 12 micron on those machines at a pretty big, decent size. And then we'll utilize we have a little upside-down LCD Nexus machine, because we're actually printing in polypropylene and things like that on parts that we know need that extra stress. So we analyze it, we cut it up, and each part, depending where it falls into a tier 1, 2, 3 level of detail, will get parsed for a specific technology. Does that answer your question?
I'll add to that with if you get into monumental size, like let's say 6 meters or taller than that, which we've done, we use subtractive methods by milling foam at different densities, and the foam's real messy, and it's not cheap, but it's cheaper than this. You got to weigh labor against the process or cost of what other machines will do. Another way to do it is to mill in reverse and then do a negative. So you're creating a mold and putting something together. You just got to make sure that you are working the undercut so that you can pull the parts out and put them together. And a lot of the large pieces that you see out on the campus here, we made those either by 3D printing them in parts and pieces, or sometimes a combination. So the Sauron and the big Boba Fett that you'll see over at the far building near the gallery, those are both one-offs. So one's milled out of a 5-pound foam, and one's milled out of an 8-pound foam, and they're one of a kind. We never molded them. They break, we fix them. They'll probably break sometime along this weekend, and we'll fix them. I have to remind my team.
Be gentle.
They don't want to break it, but no, that's what we do. We fix broken stuff, so we're happy to have them here.
Well, we're happy to have him here as well.
The interesting thing about the subtractive foam route is ever since COVID supply chain issues, foam has actually pretty much doubled or almost tripled in price because of all the manufacturers waiting and scooping it back up once their labor force returned. So that's now the economic challenge. It might be the right thing for the job, but it's not possibly covered in budget, things like that. So it just becomes very challenging, like on top of just constraints, like economic constraints as well.
Another thing I'll mention about some of the enlargements, there's a elemental display out there that's lit up, and it's a bench, and it's clear. And manufacturing something larger and clear and scaling up. Anytime you scale, like the whole world changes. You might think, I mean, I did a G.I. Joe and made it life size, but the G.I. Joe is held together by like a hair tie inside of it. And this needs like strapping to hold it together. I haven't even finished it. It's all packed up. But we made a maquette of that elemental theatrical display, that's what you would appropriately call it. And we did it all in clear. And because of Jason's material expertise, we were able to do a working model in miniature and take a lot of the work that we're talking about on working on large things out of the process because you pre-engineered it. Yeah. And the scaling, it's still problematic, but another thing I'll add to working digitally and using 3D printing, we're fortunate that we use it every day in real time. And using 3D modeling and printing it out in real time on a regular basis builds some kind of mental muscle for getting it done the right way the first time.
Yeah. Carl actually hooked me about 10 years ago. He probably said the greatest statement of what I do with 3D printing. He said, you know, it's more valuable to me in physical form than it is in liquid form. So we pretty much are printing all the time, if not for a project, for ourselves internally, pushing the limits. You saw Adam up there. One of the first things I did when we had a little bit of downtime was, hey, Adam, send me all your articulated joints and let me introduce you to the world of polypropylene and how that can now take a paint master into a functioning prototype for a tooling master. So we've now leveled up our offerings within an already amazing set of business that we've had.
That's fantastic. Do we have questions? This bright light. It's right here. It's hard to see. Cool, cool. Awesome. Continue.
Oh, you're clear.
Thank you. All right, so we're here in a paint booth, and you can tell it's a paint booth because I'm here joined with a painter, and you are?
My name is Scott Akers. Everybody calls me Beardy. I'm the head painter here at Gentle Giant.
Yeah, awesome. And again, I was saying, you could tell it's a paint booth because you have all these different types of paints, tools, accessories. So can you explain for those who may not know what you do? Like, how does painting a maquette or like a collectible work for you? Like, what's that process like?
So basically what we're doing here is we start with the 3D printed prototype or the hard copy of whatever it needs to be, and then it gets painted here with all these jars and all these colors that you see around. They're all generally Pantone colors. That we're primarily creating what's called a paint master.
Okay.
And paint master is a master copy that's used to create duplicates for manufacturing. So primarily what you see is in this case I have a Muppets figure that was done here just recently, and
wow,
this is
cool.
This is the original copy that was done, and then what you can see back here is a duplicate copy.
Yeah.
And so this is all done to ensure that when this eventually does go into manufacturing, it's going to match exactly the sample that was approved by the licensor, which in this case is Disney.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is using photo reference and client callouts and any of that material that's created through the process to deco the piece up to spec so that everybody's happy with it, and then once that's all done, it's going to go into production and everybody's appeased, basically.
Nice.
So it's all done with primarily water-based paint with a mix of, airbrushing and hand shading and things like that, and then pretty much after that, it's off to the races for manufacturing and production.
Yeah, we're going to move on to the next stage, but again, pleasure and beautiful work, man.
Thank you.
Super
Thank you
jealous.
very much.
I'm not much of a painter myself, so I may have to bug you for lessons.
Yeah, take it up.
So obviously Beardy's not here with us, and none of us are painters, and you would not want us to paint anything as well. But I think it's really important to know that a traditionalist like Beardy is part of the future of the process of technology. This is a big thing, just like how ZBrush, it was all the traditional sculptors that came over to learn the tool to move forward. I can only go so far with color 3D printing. I mean, I can give you the best resolution output, etc., but I need a trained eye like a traditionalist like Beardy to sit in and show us how to drive this and really what we can do, right? Like understanding that true color wheel, what comes together to do something. One of the projects that we want to do, Beardy and I together, is basically take a hundreds of year old process of pointillism and see if we can put two opposite colors next to each other within a voxel, and then when you stand back, it creates that third color and fills in from there. So the world's our oyster with using traditionalists and having them be an important part of the future. A lot of people think, oh, you go in color 3D printing, that means you're not going to have any traditional painters anymore. That's the furthest from the case. In fact, we'll probably need more people to come on board to assist with it at some point.
Yeah, let's hear it up for Beardy because he was awesome.
This beardness.
was such a pleasure to meet him, and yeah, his work is just astounding. So it was a pleasure.
So by now you've all seen that Kid Cudi getting passed around, and I think that's a great collaboration between all the departments coming together to show the standard of Gentle Giant, going from a traditional workforce into a fully digital output workforce. I think it's pretty neat. That shows the whole process of creating Ian's avatar. So we have a couple other videos to outro with, and then we can go into full Q&A if you'd like. You can do faces.
Who has the Kid Cudi? Okay, cool. Just checking.
We're still good with time, right?
So we are standing in a really special room because we see some incredible faces behind us. Can you explain what we're looking at right now?
These are 3D prints. Some of them are pretty rough. Some of them are, they're right off the machine, basically. Yeah. And they're head scans of different talents, from athletes to actors to you name it. They're
and a wide range of ages, so you're really getting like a capture of just the different type of individual as well as where they were in their life when they got captured. And the likeness is just, it's spot on.
But this one's kind of the most interesting to me is it's Rick Baker.
Yeah.
You guys should know Rick Baker.
Well, first off, if anybody doesn't know Rick Baker, okay, quickly Google Rick Baker because
I think he does more Oscars than anybody for makeup effects, but he's so I've actually looked at ZBrush because I used to sculpt and went, wow, I should get this, and I realized I have a studio full of it, and I just never was able to transition back, and I'm amazed that he's such a Renaissance creative guy that he grabbed that and harnessed it and did some wonderful stuff with it. Yeah. But this was scanned off of Cyberware Scanner on Planet of the Apes when he was doing makeup effects for that. But I told him to sit down in the scanner. Actually, I'll still hold that. Sit down in the scanner and we'll take a scan. And he started moving his head during the scan. And I'm like, what are you doing? Hey, you got to keep still. And the scan came up, and it was this. This rough, but it's a Cyclops. He created basically a Cyclops, just goofing around within a minute. And I went, of course, that's what Rick Baker's going to do. He's
doing artist things.
He's Rick Baker, Monster Maker, and
that's fantastic.
It was just really cool. And it shows his constant intuitive creativity, and when something new comes across, well, maybe it wasn't so new for him at that time, but so this is a fun display and great reference. And I mean, you got all kinds of different people, like Daniel Radcliffe from, I think it's the first Harry Potter, but we've got him for like 5 Harry Potters.
Wow. Well, thank you for showing me this area, and let's move on to the next page of it. And
sure.
Let's move through.
Your outro.
Okay, we did have a question from online. Come on. Where is Rick Baker's ponytail?
What's that?
Did you capture Rick Baker's ponytail?
No, not on the scan because the Cyberware head scanner has like a limited bit to capture, and it didn't do a really great job on hair. We did some refined sculpts of him. I did actual bronze of him at one point, and the ponytail's there. But the Cyclops version has never been fleshed out. But he does amazing work in ZBrush, and we worked on the Wolfman movie with Benicio del Toro, and some funny stories here. He did these mini busts of Benicio as himself in transition to the Wolfman. And I was just kind of blown away with that. And in fact, I want to make a zoetrope of the transition because it's something he would dig on and it's something cool to do. And I probably shouldn't speak out of turn here, but he wasn't really happy with the director. He was going back and forth from here to England, and but he stuck it out, and he won an Oscar for that movie, which put him kind of over the line on Oscars for makeup. And then as a thank you to Benicio, he wanted to make a ring for him. So we made this beautiful ring of the Wolfman. Benicio's head is the Wolfman, and put it into silver, much like one of these silver rings. But we needed to get a size on his finger, and so we're trying to track down Benicio, and I called my friend who did the jewelry and said, hey, I need to get a size on Benicio's ring finger. And he said, I got it. And I'm like, well, how'd you get it so fast? And he said, he's at the same gentleman's club I'm at right now. And I came up to him and said, what's your ring finger size? And he said, what are you doing, following me? And my friend said, no, are you following me? But this all happened like within hours. It was just one of the weird-ass things. And I hope I'm not outing anybody on that.
Just when in doubt,
They were just
ask.
doing research, I'm pretty sure.
Roll that out.
No, I love it. That's awesome. Yes. Do we have any questions so far on that wall of heads? Anyone? We did have a quote come in. You're not famous until you're on the Gentle Giant wall. So there you go.
That's not true. That's not true. We're missing a lot.
Oh, all right.
Oh yeah, all different prints, down to all the way up to automotive 2Ks out of guns. I mean, it really depends.
I think
Really
for toy prototypes, we mostly use the cartoon color. It's just the easiest to use. It's non-toxic and flows easily, cleans out of airbrush as well. Crystal clear, pretty much, matte mostly, sometimes gloss, whatever's appropriate.
On the prints, like where Scott has been developing that urethane spray, that also gives it a lot of UV resistance. So a lot of things, like a lot of the prints that you'll see, figures and things like that, if you put them on a windowsill, they're not going to last too long. They're going to brown. They're going to probably start sagging, things like that. But if you could do a urethane blocker or something like that, or even an automotive clear, right? Everyone always asks me, like, what's the best thing out there like that can take UV? Well, we all have them in our driveways, cars. If you look at a paint job of a car, follow that process, and that will give you a prolonged 3D print that will last you upwards of 30 years.
Hey, can I ask how that ball is so clear? Has it been polished?
Yeah, so I encourage everyone to come up. It's really heavy to go around. Yeah, so when it comes off of the printer, it's full of lines, and you can't see through it. So with any clear 3D print, the first thing I do is I'll take it and just run it underwater. That's going to tell me if it's worth taking forward or if I need to go back and print again. And then we start out literally at, 300 grit. We probably go through 8 to 9 different grits before getting to a polishing stage. There's no spray on this whatsoever. This is all hand polish in about 2 hours. So once we get full polish, then we will now take a 3M deep rubbing compound on it. We'll get that going, wet sand again on top of it, and then we'll fully polish and buff out by hand.
And this was all printed in one piece. It's not put into acrylic. And if anybody's ever put anything into acrylic, they realize there's extreme limitations to heat. And, if you try to put chocolate in there or something, you have a mess. And usually you have to make a solid model. But all this printed in one piece.
The other thing that's neat about this is if you embed anything into a sphere, good luck. If you look at it from left to right, it's going to warble. It's going to make you disoriented. So we actually figured out, worked out, got as much information as possible. Maki wouldn't give us too much information on the material, and they're clear. So we actually figured out the refraction index for this material and then compensated that and phased it out with scale. So once we knew that formula, we knew what to scale the embedded object in relationship to the outer diameter of the clear, which we fully reduce a warbling effect. And that's how we move forward doing those things now.
Wow, that's awesome. All right, we have about 12 minutes.
Yep, we have our outro video, and then
absolutely.
We'll open it up.
Well, Carl, this has been an amazing tour and a chance to hang out with you. I just want to sit here and say thank you so much. It's such a pleasure. And we're going to go ahead and kick it back to you guys in the panel. But if there's any last words you want to say before we sign off on this video.
Well, it's always a pleasure having you guys. And, you know, your technology has helped build this company. And, you know, anybody that we've influenced or has influenced us probably. And I just want to say thank you. And we look forward to talking to everybody again soon.
All right, we're going to kick it back to the panel. Happy ZBrushing, everyone. And back to you guys.
Woo!
All right, so we all know now what this means. Awesome. Let's do it one more time.
Awesome.
All right. Yeah! That's what we're talking about. Love it.
What did everyone think of that Kid Cudi color print?
We'll let that go around just a little
Did
bit.
someone leave with it?
No, it's right there.
Had that happen.
Yeah,
before.
Kid Cudi did.
Yeah, probably.
So honestly, it's been quite impressive and amazing. Again, I cannot iterate this enough that this whole process was a learning experience for me as an artist as well, but also too to the fans and the audience. I'm sure that you guys have a ton of questions now about what's going on. If there's any ZBrush questions, come on, throw them out here. But again, thank you so much for just having me come on board for this process. It was amazing, so thank you. All right, so we do have 10 minutes.
We have 10 minutes. Come take a look at the globe.
Yeah, who
You
wants
can
to
even
come
try
up?
on the mask.
Come on, don't be shy.
ask us
Join
anything.
me. Let's go. We can do a line. This is unique.
And when you look at it, look at the spores actually inside.
This is why you want to be here in person, because you get to look at cool stuff.
Yeah, it's heavy as hell. You can take the mask off and try it on. Yeah. Just don't pull the elastic too hard. Take it off.
So while we have a line going, and just be gentle, there is a question actually coming in from the chat. It actually came up a little while ago.
Cool.
How do they even apply to work at Gentle Giant? What is a location that they should go to, websites, et cetera, et cetera? How should they get a hold of you?
I would say, and I pointed this out earlier to some of the team here, that Noman and ZBrush operators are the main flow of most of the people we bring on board. So you're kind of in the right place going to this school. And I mean, I'm really happy to have the team that's here. And we've done this panel before in the past. And there's been literally hundreds of people that have worked at Gentle Giant over the years. And that is probably one of the proudest things and more valuable things. And I mean, I have Kim Lavery here, who's a founding member of the Visual Effects Society, and she's our global executive for the digital department, 3D scanning film services. And this is just a flowing river of talent and ambition. And we're here to educate and inspire if we can. And there's a lot of guys that still work with us and have worked with us before that were early adapters of ZBrush. Shout out to Jim McPherson, who still works for us. He's probably working right now. Maddie Spencer, who
Maddie.
has written some books and absolutely contributed a lot to getting people going on it. And my dear friend Neville Page, who is a real cutting edge, I mean, he's a maverick with it. And one of my favorite artists and entrepreneurs. And I could go on, lots of former modelers that are now teaching or working at other prominent collectible companies, toy companies, Disney, wherever people go.
That's fantastic.
Cool. Well, we have quite the line here. You guys have stirred up quite the event, and I love it. Do we have any questions of the audience while we go through this line process? You do. Here, one second.
So the name Gentle Giant Studios, how did that come to be?
The name Gentle Giant?
Yeah.
I was in a band, and the other guitar player referred to me as Hoss Cartwright, the Gentle Giant. Could bend a horseshoe in one hand and hold a hummingbird in the other. And I just thought it sounded better than my name or something. I think it tries to, show strength and sensitivity at the same time. So that's where that came from.
Yeah, very, very cool. Yes.
So the large elemental statues you've got outside there, they've got the lighting effects going on inside those. How did you achieve the lights in those large statues?
So that was our most difficult part of the process because it's not just one bench. We did about 11 of them. So understanding how to give the manufacturing factories the instructions was a big thing. Carl mentioned earlier we utilized clear printing on a smaller scale. So we worked out all of the components on a small scale with clear 3D prints, fully painted out and finished like you see there, but with all different A-B ways of cutting up the contours of both characters, what we're going to put inside of there, understanding the material restrictions of heat, right, because you're putting stuff in, and working it out at small scale, and then literally sending the instructions to the manufacturing line.
Yeah.
I have not a question. I'd like to publicly out Carl as the nice guy that he is. I worked for him 17 years ago.
That's right.
It was I can't tell you the amazing experiences on Harry Potter, on Star Wars, all over the world. At Lucas Ranch was amazing, scanning all the people and the characters and whatnot. And then one time I got hit by a train shortly after leaving Gentle Giant, and Carl donated 2 airplane wings to me to make a new desk where I was spending more time at home. Nice. Now I'm a cyborg.
Wow.
Thanks, Carl. I appreciate it. He's always great to me.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. That's
awesome.
super awesome.
That's fucking awesome. I don't remember.
Okay, so FYI, we only have a couple more minutes left. Are there any final questions, statements, thoughts? It's a little hard to see with this light. One second. Nope. I have a question. You ready for this one?
Go for it.
Perfect. Storytelling in your work. How important is that to you and why?
For me, so remember, it's collaboration. Every group comes together, but I'm really embedded in 3D printing community. I know the inventors of every different flavor of technology. I think it's very important to tell stories through what we're doing. Stories inspire. Stories fill in blanks for people. I don't like being binary with just yes, no, or that's how we did it. I really like to understand why, because a lot of decisions are made based on situations that happen in our 9-to-5s. And I think it's very compelling, and it draws people into, love our things even more. So it's huge telling a story behind everything. For something as scientific and mathematical as 3D printing is, relating it, I mean, we could tell you stories for hours of 3D printing's ups and downs that'll just make you cry in laughter.
I mean, every day is a new day, and there's lots of really interesting projects that happen. And we've 3D printed the bones of Joseph Merrick, the Elephant Man, from the data off the real skeleton that's at the Queen's Medical College in London, and because it was CAT scanned, and this is kind of the beauty of just digital data and how it might translate into a physical form, from a physical form to just recording it for historic reasons, to reproducing it so that there's a sample, whether it be 1-to-1 or reduced or at any scale. But because of the CAT scan, you have all the empty cavities. So we did a Calvarian cut on the skull of a casting that we did, and it has the entire brain cavity of Joseph Merrick, where we were able to do an endocast of the brain and show that he had a normal brain and was not an animal, was a human being. Had we gated and made drains, you could capture the marrow that's inside of the bones too, because whatever's in the data is in the data. And that's kind of, I don't know, you think about the future of 3D printing and digital data and synthesis and, be printing androids with flesh and bone and AI and all that stuff. Or maybe we can live forever, I don't know. I think I'm a ways off from that.
One thing I just wanted to say, I want to give a big shout out to Alec and Edgar for being part of this, because, without them involved in it, we wouldn't be able to tell this story here today. And it was very rapid fire, putting together the video, getting everything together for this. So just wanted to give them proper kudos for it.
Okay, no, that's excellent. That's excellent. Unfortunately, we are having to wrap up, but don't worry. If you have a question, if I didn't get to it, outside, I'm sure you'll be able to see this fine team, and they'll answer any questions you have. But we do have another presentation coming up, and you're not going to want to miss them, especially if you play Street Fighter, if you know Street Fighter, if you know anything about Street Fighter. Capcom is coming up next, but we also have some fun giveaways and prizes. But again,
I have a question.
Sure.
Where's Kid Cudi?
Where is Kid Cudi? Perfect. Let's go right here. Let's do it.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Okay, it's right here. Promise.
All good.
Don't leave. All right, thank you very much. Again, let's give it a warm round of applause for Gentle Giant. Woo!
Thank you. Sing for yourself.